Hello, good morning. Welcome to another installment of the Love Lexicon, where we look at words as they pertain to love, awareness, truth, and reality. And today we're doing letter B, or the B words. First up, we have bad. Bad is a value judgment which we apply to our experience. And very often when we apply this value judgment, the immediate action that follows is one of resistance. And in doing this, we create a removal from our experience. When we see and we say that something is bad, we're also saying it's not acceptable. And we can close ourselves off from it, impeding our ability to see what's actually happening. To better understand what's actually happening, I'm going to build on an idea of Huxley's, which was that what is good is that which brings us closer to truth and harmony and unity and oneness. And by extension, that which is bad is that which closes us off from this truth and harmony and oneness. So to see what we actually mean by bad still lets us see what's really happening and connect with what's real. Next up, we have baggage. Baggage is sort of the emotional weight that we can carry with us throughout our lives into any given experience. Folk who have experienced, tough upbringing and, traumatic experiences throughout their lives up until now tend to have a larger amount of baggage. And this baggage can make it harder for us to connect with our experience. It impedes our ability to love, especially when it comes to connecting with other people. Baggage really impedes social connections, and it's a tough thing to do. Tough thing to deal with. Next up, we have balance. Balance is our ability to remain centered and to hold ourselves in composure despite the nature of our experience. Whatever life throws at us, whether it be the good or the bad, to remain centered and poised is it's a show of, I find, great maturity. That means you're very well and able to live with love and awareness. By contrast, when we are off balance, if we're unable to maintain balance, our behavior becomes automatic, compulsively trying to correct and right ourselves, and very often it overcompensates, and very often it becomes too focused on the me and we miss the big picture. Barrier. Barriers are typically ideas about the self and about the world that are misplaced. So they're not an accurate perception of what actually is. These barriers exist between the mind and our experience. They stop us from seeing what is clearly happening, and they stop us from being able to live in a way that is harmonious within our experience. So our behavior becomes unharmonious and unloving and very often destructive. The Beatles. I chucked the Beatles in the list because, for two reasons. Being artists, they are very creative and they're very practiced in the art of behaving with love, because to express yourself artistically is a display of love. It's a powerful and tremendous display of love. You're letting something from your internal state flow out into the world. And when it's a practiced and cultivated art, it can be a beautiful product, and very often was, not a big call to say that the Beatles' work was pretty incredible. And then the second reason I include them here is because very often the content of their work was of love. They wrote music about love, and they shared about love, which I think is pretty incredible. George Harrison was the best Beatle. He seemed the most switched on as far as I'm concerned. Next up, we have beauty. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder, as they say. So it's a subjective experience. When a person is unable to see the world clearly, when they have a lot of barriers up and their awareness and their capacity to love is limited, it's not as easy for them to see the beauty of the world. Conversely, when we are allowing our awareness to flow, and when we are living with love, the beauty of life is readily apparent, because there is beauty in every aspect of our experience. Even that which you may think is bad and unpleasant, there is still beauty in it, in that it is a perfect expression of the universe in this instant. And it is beautiful because it is happening. It is beautiful because it will never happen again. This moment is temporary, and it is just happening now, and it will be gone, never to be experienced again. I think that's kind of special. Becoming, I like this word. Becoming is something that we are. We are in a process of becoming. At any given instant, for the entirety of our lives, we are becoming our own person. So, similar to the idea of beauty, I suppose, there is beauty in our own person at this instant. It also takes the pressure off a little bit. So, what I am right now may not feel like perfect or exactly who I want to be, but it is a perfect expression of me in this moment. And it is a necessary stage in the unfolding of my person. For me to become who I will become, this current version of me is absolutely necessary. And it is absolutely beautiful and perfect as I continue to unfold, to grow, and to develop in my capacity to love and to live. I think we're also all sort of on a similar journey of becoming. I find that we are individually and collectively, we are moving toward greater awareness. We are moving toward greater love. That is the general progression of our journey of becoming. That's where we're going. That's what we're doing. That's what we're working toward, is we want to, and we strive to, very naturally and intuitively, to love more and to be more aware and more embracing of our experience so that we can live. Behavior. This is a big one. Behavior involves the things that we do. Very often our understanding of behavior is of the external and the physical things that we put out into this world, because they're much more tangible and perceptible. But there's a whole other realm of behavior, and that is our thought behavior. Our thought behavior are the things that we think, the behavior of the mind. Much less tangible, much less perceptible, because it's not, you can't see it in the world, and we tend to miss it for that reason, amongst others. But our thought behavior is very, very crucial, because it comes before our external bodily behavior. And much like our bodily behavior, the way that we think develops into habit. So if we engage in a particular thought behavior again and again and again and again, it becomes automatic, and it becomes even less perceptible. That's again another reason why we miss it, because we have, over the years of our lives, we have developed particular thought habits that are very, very hard to see because they're so well developed. They're such hardened habits, such a part of our daily experience that we totally miss them. And very often these ideas have the effect of creating barriers and impeding our ability to see life clearly, to engage in life clearly with love. For our behavior to be loving, it has to come from awareness. We need to allow a clear and non-judgmental, that's very important, that bit, non-judgmental perception of our current experience in order to behave harmoniously. If we can't see what's happening in the present moment, our behavior is very naturally, or almost necessarily, it's out of sync. So if you don't know what's actually happening, you're not going to be able to behave in a way that is completely appropriate, completely harmonious. To the extent that we are unaware of what is real and we are unengaged from the present moment, our behavior becomes unharmonious. And typically, very often this is destructive. and we create tension, especially with our thought behavior. When our thoughts are not an accurate representation of reality, we create tension. And this is the origin of suffering. This is why we struggle in life, because the mind has ideas that are different to what is actually happening. Awareness of our behavior. That's what we need. Being. Another word I'm quite fond of. A being is anything which we assume to be alive, I find is a good way of putting it. I read a book a long time ago that said that it lists like the ultimate truth of reality in our experience. And one of the big ones, a really powerful underlying foundational truth that is an absolute game changer, was that we are all equal beings. It's huge. Now, even if you're just thinking about human beings for the time being, that's fine. If you assume that all people are equal, the behavior that follows is powerful and beautiful and just tremendously loving. There's an instant, massive leap in our capacity for empathy and compassion and kindness and collaboration as well, because we're not separate. We're not isolated from our brothers and sisters. We all work together. I've never used the term brothers and sisters, but you get my meaning. We're all in this together. There is harmony and unity in our experience, and anything that enforces the distinction is, in a sense, illusory. We are all equal beings. This word can also be used in the sense that what we're doing right now is we are being. That's a way of sort of grounding yourself in the present moment. What I am doing right now is I am being. I am me in the present moment, simply being. Believe. Similar to our ideas and our thought behavior, our beliefs are the ways that we think the world works, is what I'm trying to say. It's sort of the lenses through which we experience this life. And very often it is the case that our beliefs are contrary to what is actually real. As far as ideas about reality go, I think there are very few ideas or beliefs necessary to see life clearly. Very often we see life much more clearly when we look beyond our beliefs. So more often than not, beliefs impede awareness, which is a tricky thing. Obviously there are exceptions to this, and there are beliefs that are foundational and very true, but I think if they're foundational and true, they're not really beliefs, it's just sort of reality. Like the idea that we are all equal beings. Again, see, that is a belief, but there is a limitation to the extent of that truth, because when you get down to the deepest and depths of it, there is a oneness and an absolute unity, and there is no separation, and therefore there are no equal beings, because we are all one. We've gotten kind of far out there. Anyway, belonging. Belonging is the sense of feeling at home, feeling at ease and at peace, and as if you fit perfectly within your environment. This is something that naturally comes with a greater expression or a greater ability to live with love and awareness, because we find our place in our current experience. There is, in a sense, already a perfect sense of belonging. Like, you are exactly where you need to be, where you're exactly where you fit in an ultimate karmic sense. But we can still feel like we don't belong if we don't feel like we're amongst a community that loves and accepts us, and a people that allow us to express ourselves freely. And I guess that same sense of belonging can be within our own person it's powerful. To feel that one belongs it's a really profoundly beautiful experience to feel that we belong. And it's something we definitely all deserve and we don't all experience, which is a tough thing. Beloved. Beloved is one whom we love. And I just think that's a nice idea. My beloved is one who I love. I think it's a cool expression to acknowledge that for this one particular person, you have a huge amount of love for them. It's a cool thing to acknowledge. Yeah. Bereavement or bereft. To be bereft of something is to be missing something. And this is something that we can experience when we experience a great loss in our lives, particularly the loss of a loved one, or also the loss of a feeling of belonging to a community or a lifestyle. This loss challenges our sense of who we are, and it creates uncertainty, which is, as I said, very, very challenging and can take a significant amount of time to readjust to and reacclimatize to, especially loss of a loved one. It's absolutely gutting and just earth-shattering. For that reason, when we experience a great loss, there can be allowed what is called a bereavement period, which is when people commonly accept that, okay, you've gone through some nasty business and we're going to give you time to recover. And there's this, I forget the term for it, but there is a category of loss that is categorized as such because it isn't granted a bereavement period. So it's when we experience loss, but people don't validate the loss, and therefore you're not allowed the time to recover, which just makes the loss so much more challenging and tricky to bounce back from. Bias is when we approach a situation with imbalance. And through this imbalance, we favor one thing over another, and tends to be that our perception is unclear and the behavior that follows is unharmonious. It doesn't quite fit. And it tends to fail to be loving. I guess the remedy for this is to be aware of the ideas that you have within your own mind, within your own system, your own belief systems, and to try and avoid having them get in the way of your behavior and the tension and suffering that they may cause. Self-awareness, basically. The Bible. I don't know if this is a good idea or not, but I had to include this because it's a big deal. The Bible is the book about Jesus and the Jesus God, and there's a lot of good stuff in the Bible, really. There's strong guidance and powerful information about love and reality. But amongst that, there's also a lot of misinformation and a lot of ideas that are unloving. So to get what's good out of the Bible, you have to approach it with sort of a filter of love. Because as I said, it is wonderful and tremendous, and there is profound insight within this beautiful book. But it was written 100 years plus after Jesus. It's been translated a number of times, and it was written for a people that are different to us, for a time that was different to us. It doesn't readily apply as a literal guidebook to the modern world. It's to be taken metaphorically. Take the meaning, pick up the vibe, but don't hold fast to the itty bitty. And if the behavior that you get that comes from your interpretation of the Bible is unloving, then you've missed the point. Because all it's telling you, all Jesus wanted you to do, Jesus was a real dude. He existed. It's like historically validated that Jesus happened. Not everything he did in the book happened, probably, but he was a real dude. And he taught about love. He lived with love. All this book is telling you to do is to embrace love. It tells you in like 1,200 pages, but it's just saying live with love. Big business. I have included here because we are talking about awareness, and big business are a part of our reality, a part of the modern world that very often slips below our awareness because it happens behind the scenes. Big business are corporations that have a disproportionate and honestly a rather grotesque amount of wealth, power, and influence. That's a fact. Like, they are at the top of the current system and they are reaping in the benefits. Because they are at the top and because the current system is working so well for them, they have no incentive for the system to change. They will resist and impede our general growth and becoming. Our movement toward greater love and awareness is not something they want. They want the status quo to remain as it is. That'll do for that. Bigotry. Bigotry is, it's like a stubborn adherence to a particular belief or ideology, very often having the effect of acting with prejudice or violence toward a particular people. So that's unloving very clearly for two reasons. Blind adherence to a particular belief is refusing to accept everything that contradicts that belief. It's really narrowing in on this one particular thing, and it is denying every single other aspect of our experience that may contradict this particular belief. So we're refusing our experience, and then it's obviously unloving because bigotry involves violent and prejudicial behavior toward a particular people. That is clearly unloving. If you're persecuting someone unjustly, you're not being very loving, are you? Next, I have birds. I like birds. This one's perhaps a little bit more personal, but I found in my particular journey toward greater awareness that there was a point where I started to notice the birds. It was a beautiful thing for me because they're kind of everywhere, but it's one of those aspects of our experience that we have turned the volume down significantly because we've on some level in the mind, we've said, that doesn't matter. Don't worry about it. When you start to notice the birds, I found it brought quite a bit of peace and joy into my life because, they sing and they fly and they dance. Like, they're beautiful. And as an extension, or more a side note, birds are different to us in that they aren't bound to this earth. They have the freedom to take to the skies, which is, again, just like a really beautiful thing that they can just fly. It's cool. Best bird is the yellow-tailed black cockatoo. Look it up. My first favorite bird was the kookaburra, followed by the king parrot, followed by sulfur-crested cockatoos, because this is way too specific, near my family home, they used to roost, and you'd get like 200 of these guys every evening and every morning flying in and out of the bush, and they cause such a racket, but I just like them. I'm just into it. I think it's really cool. And they're smart and they live for ages. Like, birds are cool. Such a geek. Blame is the inverse of responsibility. So when we are blaming something for an outcome, or say something nasty happened, something we didn't enjoy, something that was unpleasant, when we deal out blame, to the extent that we're blaming others, we are refusing to acknowledge our own role in the situation. So similar to apathy and boredom, we're saying, I'm not a part of this. You're boxing yourself out of your environment, and that's not how things work. We are all connected. We are a part of our experience, and to grow and to live, basically, you have to accept that we're involved in this, and we necessarily have responsibility. This applies on the individual scale as well as on the greater scale of humanity. We are all responsible to an extent for what's happening in our current experience. And we need to own that, because that is an act of love. That is an act of maturity. It's an aspect of reality. Bless. This is a funny one. I've grown quite fond of the term and of the act of blessing someone. I'm not a religious person, but my extended family is, and was very much so throughout my upbringing. So, to say grace and to offer your blessing to someone, or to say bless you when someone sneezes, always felt like a little bit weird for me. But now I'm so into it because I find that to bless someone is just to endow them with love. It's to say, have love in you, which I really like. So now, yeah, I say bless you when people hiccup and cough and all sorts of irritating things. Have love with you. Be loving. May you experience love in this moment. May love flow through your life. I reckon it's just kind of cool. Blindness or a blind spot. This is an aspect of our experience that we are unable to see for whatever reason. We all have blind spots in our lives, very much due to our past experiences. There are things that we've been through which can make it difficult to deal with similar things in the present moment. In order to remedy a blind spot, you've got to, this is a big ask, you need to understand what you have been through. You need to reflect and allow that you've been through some tough things and to act with love toward them. So to be aware of them is an act of love. To accept them is an act of love. To attempt to process them is an act of love. These are all necessary things. We have to come to terms with our past experiences in order to be able to live with clarity in our present experience. This can very often be particularly the case with relationships. So our past relationships can very much shape what we look for in future relationships. And there can be things in previous relationships which were unhealthy and which we failed to clearly see. And we can repeat that same, I don't want to say mistake, we can repeat that same behavior again and again. And if we don't recognize the pattern and we don't recognize that there's this particular thing about this particular person that we continue to overlook, then we're going to keep repeating this and we're going to keep having the same unfavorable experiences with this same relationship. Anyway, a blockage. A blockage is very similar to a barrier. It's the ideas within the mind that impede our ability to see life clearly and impede our ability to love the present experience. Blockages are very typically a type of thought behavior or a thought habit, that is behavior that is hardened over time. It's an idea about the self, more often than not, or an idea about the world. And yeah, unloving by nature, a blockage. And they can be unblocked. To recognize that you have a blockage is the first crucial and very big step toward lessening the blockage, toward overcoming it and allowing love to flow through that which was otherwise blocked. Blue. This is the old school term for depressed. We now have a significantly better understanding of mental health than we did way back when. And I was thinking about this, like, blue has, to say that we're feeling blue can maybe be a positive or a negative thing because it lessens the hold that this depressive experience may have over us. I think to feel blue necessarily means that it's a bit more transient, but at the same time, it can dismiss the depth and the heartbreakingly profound challenge that comes with the experience of depression. So, anyway, we don't really use this word anymore, so I maybe didn't even really need to include it. Next we have body. This vessel, this mechanism through which we experience this life. We wouldn't know anything, we would literally know nothing about our current experience if it were not for our body and the body's senses. The body's senses, including our external senses, our internal bodily senses, and our cognitive senses, that is our ability to perceive our thought perception, our thought behavior. The body system is something which we have removed ourselves from, unintentionally, but very significantly. To the extent which we identify with the mind, we are removed from the body and we are removed from our experience. And this is compounded even further because we're not just our mind. We're actually just a fragment of our mind, because there's this aspect of the mind that we find difficult to accept and we want to push away. Ideas about the self which are unpleasant to face. So we're not our body anymore, we're just our mind, but we're not our mind anymore, we're just the bits of our mind that are okay. But yeah, to re-engage with the body system, that is to feel our senses, is always a loving act because they are always grounded in the present moment. To love is to be in your body. Body image, a very tricky idea that is propagated by modern culture is that your body should look a particular way. And I think that most all of us are affected by this. There's an idea of what a man or a woman should look like. And it's a very, very specific, very slim idea that 99.9% of us will not meet. And as a result of this, 99.9% of us will be unhappy with our body, which is, it's an undesirable state for us to be in as a collective people, that most of us don't like this body. To move toward greater love is to accept that this is your person. This is you right now in the present moment. This is a perfect expression of you. This is what the universe has made, and this is happening, and this is now. And it is beautiful because it is happening and because it is now. It's a perfect, like it's literally perfect. Despite every single one of its warts and boils, it is literally perfect. Body language. This is the vibes that we put off into the world by the way the body moves. So besides our words and our vocal behavior, there's a lot of signals that we send from our person toward others based on what the body is doing. Powerful ideas about your internal state are conveyed simply by the way your body is moving. It's cool. Open body language is what we might strive for if we're trying to be more loving. Things that welcome engagement, other than things like, this is closed. This is closed. This is open. This is saying, come on, give me life. Connect with me. Boredom. Boredom is similar to apathy. It's one of those things that I find is a lot more destructive than it lets on. So boredom is basically saying that this isn't good enough. What's happening right now, not good enough. It needs to be better. Not in a way that like it's overly negative. It's just like generally unacceptable. Which is probably, it's much more a problem likely in the modern world, where we're used to the real fast-paced action, and we want that instant gratification, and boredom comes so much more readily if we find ourselves out in the world without our phone. Well, actually, very often that's an eye-opening experience, and it can be quite beautiful and transformative. But say you find yourself at home in your bedroom without your phone, or without a screen of any sort, you'd be like, damn, this sucks. And it's destructive because it doesn't suck. The present moment never sucks. What's happening is what's happening. And it's beautiful and it's necessary because it is happening. And like that really should be enough. To resolve boredom, we need to re-engage with our current experience. We need to get out in the world. It's to search and to engage with something. Because boredom is it's such a passive thing. It's sitting there and saying, entertain me, be good enough, but refusing to actually do anything about it. Which is just like lazy. It's lazy and it's critical in that it's overly judgmental. It's not very loving, this kind of behavior. Bravery. I think the idea that I'm talking about here comes from Game of Thrones, but it's still a doozy. Bravery is something that happens not in the absence of fear, but in the presence of fear. So you can't be brave if there isn't fear first. It's such a ripper of an idea. And it was quite eye-opening for me because we all experience fear. And if we experience this fear, but we refuse or we're unable to act with bravery and we're unable to sort of step up above the fear and to do what we've got to do anyway, then the fear becomes debilitating. And to the extent that it is dominant over our life, we withdraw from our experience and we are unable to engage or rise to the occasion. So fear can really just, it can, as I said, it can be debilitating. It can stop you in your tracks. But bravery is to take action and to engage with what is happening in the present moment despite fear. It's such a powerful thing to do, and it is incredibly loving. And it's a habit that we can develop in the same way that we can develop the habit of letting fear silence us and stop us in our tracks. We can also develop the habit of acting despite fear and being brave. And it's very often that behavior that happens despite fear, that behavior that is brave, that really shapes our person. Those are serious character building kind of moments. They make you you, and it's powerful and really, really important. It's something I personally have struggled with quite a lot. But hey, I'm just in my own process of becoming, and I'm getting a little bit better at it with age and time and practice. Breath or breathing. The breath is a very powerful grounding tool. So it's something that happens in the present moment. Obviously, you're breathing right now. And now that I've said that, you may be noticing your breath. I've started noticing mine. The breath is important for a couple of reasons. I've included it here. Breathing meditation is one of the most common and powerful entry levels of meditation. Breathing meditation has the effect of focusing on a very simple and significant aspect of our experience. To focus on the breath, which is itself genuinely quite meditative because breath has this beautiful flow of constant in and out, and it's quite calming in its own way. But as we practiced breathing meditation, it has the effect of quietening the mind. It has the effect of lessening the impact of our thought behavior. Because very often the volume on the mind is turned up to 11 and we are listening to this guy over every other sensory experience. We're much more interested in what is happening in the mind due to years of practice of listening to this mind. And on top of that, the mind is not particularly healthy. Like the way, if you stop and listen to the mind for a while, you'll notice that it's kind of wild and unruly, and it sort of does its own thing. So when we practice breathing meditation, we become grounded. The mind becomes a little bit more quiet, and we are better equipped to apply that same awareness that we've been cultivating as we've been watching the breath. We can apply it to our greater experience. The breath is also cool because it's sort of like a bridge between our mind and our body, in that when the mind becomes agitated or the body itself becomes worked up or agitated, the breath quickens. It's very important. It's very powerful because it's one of the few things that we can readily shape the way it's behaving. So say your mind's become worked up or your body's become worked up. If you choose to slow your breathing, the mind will settle or the body will settle. There's no other way that we can do that we can simply just calm our entire system by shaping a particular behavior. And much like meditation and awareness, it's a skill we can cultivate. to be aware of your breath. It also is an indicator in that same way. If the breath is sharp and fast and shallow, you can notice this and then be like, okay, wait, I'm kind of worked up. What's going on here? And it can ground you in what's happening and help you to understand how you're engaging in your current environment and why it is that you're worked up. The Buddha. So very often when we hear the term Buddha, we think it's a particular dude. Buddha technically just means an enlightened being, but when we talk about the Buddha, we're talking about a particular guy. We're talking about Prince Gautama, who 2,500 years ago figured it all out. He sat down and he meditated, and he found some profoundly transformative truths about our experience. And then he shared it with other people. His realizations had a lot to do with the nature of our thought behavior and the impact that it has on our current experience. If you're, which I'm covering like good chunks of this in my alphabet, my alphabet story. But if you want to look at it more closely, look into the Vipassana practice, because the teachings of the Buddha were maintained with considerable purity through the Vipassana technique. And it is now readily available to people in the modern world. You can look at the theory, but it's much more effective to learn by doing. And the best way is to attend a Vipassana course. They're volunteer run. They're all run on donations. It doesn't cost anything, but it does take 10 days to properly begin to learn this technique. Well, not begin. To learn this technique takes 10 days. And it's worth it. 100% it's worth it. Like it is so eye-opening. And you basically spend the 10 days cultivating your capacity for awareness. So to learn to see what is real, which is something that you don't realize how bad we are at doing until you sort of sit down and try and do it. We have a lot of ideas that impede our awareness and impede our ability to love. Finishing up, we have burden. Burden is very similar to baggage. It's emotional weight that we take with us, and it can impede our ability to live with love and to engage in the present moment. Perhaps different to baggage, burdens may not be so easily overcome. So for some reason in my head, I think that burdens are sort of not necessary, but like if you have a burden, it's something that simply is, and you can't just shed yourself of a burden as you may be able to of baggage. Burdens are like, they're there and they're there to stay. So it can be a bit more challenging to come to terms with. To live with the burden and to accept it, I think probably helps us to see life in a way that more readily allows love and beauty. That's just a feeling I've got. Anyway, so those are the B's. Hope you had fun with all the B's of love and awareness and reality. And be well. See you next time. Bye.